Hi everyone, my name's TSW, and in this video, instead of doing a generic just have music in on the background, I thought I'd go through a bit of a rundown of what it is I'm doing and why during the Illidan encounter in Black Temple. So yay, we finally made it to Illidan. So I've got quite good gear, so I'm really not scared about dying in any phase apart from the transitions. So I'm going full out threat, so I'm haste potting on the pull, and I continue to haste pot throughout phase 1. So you may want to be armor potting for the entire fight, but I feel confident enough that I'm not going to die, so I don't. The same with Thunderclap, I'm just pumping out damage and threat, and ultimately, as you'll see at the end of the video, it really does pay off. So there are 3 abilities you need to worry about, the first of which being Shear. So this is a cast from Illidan, 1.5 seconds, he just did it there. You need to not use your shield block until Illidan casts Shear. You'll soon know if you have Shear because you'll probably die. So it's a debuff that reduces your HP by 60% for 7 seconds, and you're almost certainly going to die. If you do get the debuff, you can Nightmare Seed and Last Stand to try and survive it, but really it's not designed to be a very easily survivable debuff. So you have to really be careful and save your shield block for the Shear. Next up we have the Flame Crash. So this is another cast by Illidan. What this does is creates a circle on the floor where you are standing. So what I try and do is I just try and stack as many of the Flame Crashes on the floor as I can. This way you don't need to keep moving Illidan. So the typical tactic is you start Illidan on the side here and you just drag him every time there's a Flame Crash, or every other time there's a Flame Crash, and you just make a path of Flame Crash circles. What I try and do is just stack them up so the melee never have to really move, and it works quite well, because even though the melee group has to move, you might think, you know, they're melee, they're just swinging, they're not necessarily going to be dropping DPS by moving, but they do drop a little bit. You know, if they ever get dragged out of melee range, that's stopping DPS, and again, DPS is a big deal on this server. You know, the Enrage timer is very tight. Talking of Enrage timer, you could also just tank Illidan where he stands at the start of the fight. There's no need to drag him over here at all. You can just have the raid be parked further back. Also, there's a Draw Soul which will heal Illidan for 100,000 health for anyone in front of Illidan. So as long as that's just the main tank, that's as much as you can do. So dropping into phase 2, this is probably the most boring phase for a main tank, but there's still a little bit of optimization that you can do. So I commanding shout my group and the paladin tank. I then go into berserker stance. I swap my main hand and my offhand and my ranged weapon. Don't forget to swap your ranged weapon as well. Your job here is just to deal damage. So I'm sundering to 5 really quickly, as well as cleaving and whirlwinding these 2 elementals. These 2 elementals are fairly close at the start of the phase, so capitalize on your cleave. Very nice. And then it's just spamming Devastate until Whirlwind comes off cooldown, and then spamming Execute when we hit 20% of the target. So on this server, the Flame of Azzinoths have a 12-second cooldown between their Flame Breath. So this gives the tanks a nice bit of wiggle room to reposition, maybe even face it towards the raid if you need to position your Flame of Azzinoth in a particular way, or you want to reposition it. For example, you can see here, the Flame of Azzinoth is facing the range group, but because the Flame of Azzinoth has just done his Flame Breath, the Paladin tank is confident that the raid is safe. And again, facing it towards the raid, and then positioning it again away between the Flame Breaths. Very nice. Also, because you know that the Flame Breaths are coming at a very predictable moment in time, you could even try and stack the Flame Patches. So the Flame Patches just spawn every time there's a Flame Breath on the location where the breath happens. So similarly to how I was stacking the Flame Crash, you could also try and stack these Flame Patches as well. There's also the I-Beam, which is the big blue beam. This will kill anybody, even the 5 resistance tanks, if they get caught in it when it's being drawn on the floor. After which, where it is now, where it's just stood there on the floor, it deals less damage. So don't forget to use your ranged weapon melee if you're not able to hit the boss. It still does damage, particularly if you're like here on a tight Enrage timer. It pays to do what damage you can at any moment in time. So again, What's really useful being the tank in this scenario is if there's flame patches and we're not quite sure whether or not as a melee group we can attack or can't, I can just go first, and if I take fire damage, I'll probably survive. Well, I definitely will survive as long as I don't take 3 ticks of it. I can stand in the fire and say, oh, well, no, melee, we can't attack because I'm getting hit in fire as I'm trying to stutter towards the boss, or the flame elemental rather. But as soon as I can get into melee range and I can engage with the target, then that's the melee's signal for, okay, this mob is attackable without taking fire damage. It doesn't really happen on this attempt, but there will be, particularly at the start of progress, times where it's awkward to attack the fire elemental because of fire. Okay, and also at about 40% HP, I play it quite safe. I drop into defensive stance just so I can get a nice big healthy rage bar ready for the phase transition and the threat reset. So we're going to be jumping into essentially phase 1 again. So on this transition, it can be a little bit scary. You do want to be hotted. You see I have a priest shield, and the paladin's going to be laying hots into me as well. I've also called for a early demo shout, just because you go from taking 0 damage, boom, to taking, you know, the full force of Illidan straight away. So you just need to make sure that you run into the start of the phase with your best foot forward and immediately receiving heals and immediately getting the important debuffs on. So again, I'll sound like a broken record. You need to shield block the shear. It's the most important thing as a tank, really. You're just going to be dying if you don't. I think maybe half the time, if I took a shear, I'd die. Sometimes you really do need to Nightmare Seed and Last Stand to even stand a chance to survive. Okay, so again with the flame crashes, I'm trying to have a little bit of a pattern. I do the first one on the right, and then the flame crashes from here. I try and stack them as best I can, and then at worst case, I just do one on the right, one in the middle, and then one on the left. So I'm happy. And then it's more of the same. Again, shield blocking the shear. And now he's dropped down for his first demon phase. So this is when the warlock, of course, is picking it up. I'm in a good position. I've got a nice amount of rage. And I'm happy going into, I'm dancing away. I'm so happy. Okay, so we need to be spread out because of the flame burst. So the flame burst has a 5-yard range where it's going to be dealing damage to anyone nearby. We do have people who are closest to the boss stacked in pairs, because you don't die if you take two AoE amounts of damage from the flame burst, and it means that we can stack damage closer to the shadow demons that are spawning. When the shadow demons are about to spawn, our warlocks are using Seed of Corruption and spamming it. So as soon as the ads spawn, boom, we've got Seed of Corruptions blasting. So we're going to get one more flame burst. You can see on the Deadly Boss mod, the time is just up, making sure you're spread from anyone, just to make sure we don't kill them. And the normal phase starting in 6 seconds. There's also an Aura of Dread, which is why you don't have any melee during the demon phase. It just deals shadow damage and increases your shadow damage taken, so you die very quickly if you are anywhere near Illidan at the demon phase. So again, back into the normal tanking phase. The warlock tank is asking me to tank him a little bit further away, so he's better range for taking the shadow demons should one go on him. And also on this server, it's a bit awkward to pick him up. Illidan likes to melee when he goes into shadow phase, which isn't Blizz-like to my knowledge. So that's just something that we had to work around. So again, because I started with a full rage bar, I was able to pump straight away. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that Illidan does the threat reset at the end of the animation. So at the start of the tanking phase here, I'm sundering to 5, and then as soon as he finishes his animation, I hit him with the shield slam. At worst, I shield slam with the armor reduction of Sunder Armor, but best case scenario, that's 5 devastates worth of threat plus a shield slam, which is quite a lot. But the bottom line being, if you start with lots of rage, you can't ask for a better start in a threat reset than having lots of rage. So again, I'm happy. I've got 100 rage. I'm now using my scrolls because I wasn't using them earlier by mistake. Oops. And then we're just jumping to the back of the raid here, having a dance with our Holy Priest. And again, going through demon phase. So we're spreading out. That big blue flame is of course the flame blast. Sorry, flame burst. And we're just letting the range do their thing. So the demons are coming soon. You can see the red beams from our warlocks. That's Seed of Corruption, because it's so vital to get the Seed of Corruption going off. There we go. Now we target one with Skull because it's the closest to killing somebody. When these demons meet their target with the beam, they instantly die. The player instantly dies, so it's imperative that you kill the beams, particularly the ones that are closest to killing their target. So I'm full rage. Everyone's kind of like, I can't really easily run through the raid without getting close to people because of the damage of the flame burst. So luckily, again, because I've got a lot of rage, I can just intervene my way through and it's all good. So again, I'm just sundering, making sure I've got the sunder debuff, and then shield slam once the animation ends, and that works really nicely, I found. I drop a little bit there, use a Nightmare Seed just to make sure I don't die. So that's nice. Again, every phase transition you need to be pre-cast with HOTS and be pre-casting the big heals, Holy Lights and what have you, just to make sure you don't dip. And if you do dip, like I did, just react, use Nightmare Seed. Try not to use the last stand unless you really have to. And there we go, 30%. So now he's going to do everything he did before, as well as an Enrage. So the Enrage is a nice benchmark for when it's about 2 minutes from the end of the fight. So I whisper our Holy Paladin and say, hi, just a reminder, I spoke to him before the raid and said, when Illidan does his Enrage, that's when I would like the improved lay on hands, please. So I just whisper him and making sure that he's happy with that. So as the Holy Paladin in this position, you want to make sure you have your mana potion ready after the lay on hands. So again, because the debuffs have fallen off, reapply them. Again, shield block the shear. You should be very confident with shield blocking the shear at this point. If at any stage you are rage starved and you can't shield block the shear, you want to instantly use a blood rage to get enough rage for the shield block. That's a big tip right there. So I get the agonizing flame debuff, which is whatever, just extra healing. More shears. He's going to do his soft Enrage now. There we go, get the cast. Scary, scary. I get the improved lay on hands, and we lust. You want to be lusting 30 seconds until the demon phase. So after 30% HP, he's in phase 5. And when he's 30 seconds away from a phase 5 demon phase, you want to lust. And then 15 seconds until the demon phase, you want to drag him to a trap. Luckily, we get a trap nice and close, which is great. And we go all out. I even use a haste potion here and swap to dual wielding just to squeeze out that little bit of extra damage. And now we're going into a demon phase and I'm full rage. I couldn't be happier. I'm in a really good position here. The only way I could be in a better position is if I didn't haste pot and I instead had a armor pot still rolling. But I'm still happy. So we're spread out. I'm just nuking the boss as hard as we can. The only way that we can really die here is either to the Enrage or to the Shadow Demons. So I'm telling people to just, focus on the Shadow Demons. If you didn't have any trinkets or anything that you were able to use for the Enrage, you don't want to save them for the tanking, with me tanking phase. You want to be using them now on these demons because we cannot have anybody die. See, our Warlock tank had a Shadow Demon on him. He called it out on Discord and we were able to kill it. It's good to be really vocal if you are the Shadow, if you're the Demon Warlock, just to make sure that you can scream if you need help, because like the main tank, I'm important when I'm tanking the boss. The Warlock tank is equally as important when he's tanking the boss in this Shadow phase. Okay, so he did his last Flame Burst. I get into position, start sundering, people start applying their debuffs. He's going to start hitting me very soon. And he's at 7% HP, which is pretty low. So I'm able to just start rolling cooldowns essentially. So I'm going to be Nightmare Seeding soon. Because he's so low, we're going to kill him in the next 30 seconds. So I might as well have a Nightmare Seed rolling. Likewise with Last Stand. There's no point having the cooldowns if you aren't using them in the fight. And if you manage to get to the end without using them, sweet, just use them. I even use a armor pot on 1% HP as well as shield wall, so I'm in a really good position. Oh, and there we go. We kill him just as he hits Enrage. And even if he did hit Enrage, I've got every cooldown rolling. So I'm in really good standing if we did have 5 seconds of Enrage on me. So that's really nice. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative to any warriors out there tanking Illidan. And if you enjoyed it, thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more going forward. One thing I might do, please leave comments if you want to see this, is I could just go through every boss in TBC with this kind of format. It's fairly easy for me to do. And I think it gives a good amount of insight for up and coming warriors in TBC. Also, I'm using elixirs because they're slightly better than flasks generally, but even more so for a dual wielding boss like Illidan. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.